You're listening to Static Whisper Stories. Tonight, a researcher discovered that something buried 40,000 years ago already knew her name. There is a specific kind of silence that exists at 2 a.m. in a research lab, not peaceful silence, not the comfortable silence of a sleeping house. It is the silence of fluorescent lights humming at a frequency just above what you consciously notice. It is the silence of a server cooling fan cycling through the same rhythm it has cycled through 10,000 times before. It is a silence made entirely of machines, and on most nights, Dr. Elena Marsh found it comforting. On the night of October 19th. She did not. She would later describe it in the single account she agreed to give as the feeling of reading a letter and realizing halfway through that the person who wrote it is standing directly behind you. She didn't hear anything. She didn't see anything. The lab was exactly as it always was. At 2 a.m., cluttered, cold, lit with the pale blue glow of 3 monitors. But she had read the translation. And once you read something, you cannot unread it. That is where this story begins. Not with a scream, not with a shadow moving at the edge of a corridor. It begins with a woman sitting at a desk, reading a printout and going very, very still. Elena Marsh was 34 years old, and by most professional standards, she was considered unremarkable in the best possible way. She had not made any major breakthroughs. She had not published any papers that changed her field. She was a mid-level research associate at the Computational Linguistics and AI Translation Laboratory at a mid-sized university in the Pacific Northwest, a university whose name, at her request, has been withheld from all documentation related to this account. What Elena did, what she was genuinely excellent at, was feeding things into the model. That is what her colleagues called it. Feeding things into the model. The lab had spent 7 years developing a neural translation architecture they called LUM, linguistic understanding through multi-layer encoding networks. Most translation systems work by matching patterns between known languages. Lumen was different. It had been trained to identify structural grammar, recurring symbolic logic, and phonetic probability patterns in texts, even when no reference language existed. In practical terms, this meant that Lumen could produce working translations of severely damaged or incomplete texts, ancient manuscripts, partially eroded inscriptions, degraded audio, by inferring linguistic logic from internal patterns alone. It was. Her supervisor, Dr. Harlan Osei, often said, less like a translator and more like a very confident guesser. Elena had spent 2 years feeding Lumen everything the team could find: linear A tablets, undeciphered medieval cipher manuscripts, fragments from pre-Columbian codices that existing scholarship had never cracked. Lumen would produce output. Sometimes the output was clearly nonsense, strings of English that had grammatical structure but no coherent meaning, like a sentence assembled from real words in the wrong order. Sometimes the output was plausible, enough that it would get passed to a human linguist for review. None of it had ever been confirmed as accurate. That was the nature of working with undeciphered scripts. You produced hypotheses, not answers. Elena understood this. She had made peace with it. And then, on the evening of October 18th, The night before everything changed, a package arrived at the lab. It came from a geological survey team working in a remote area of eastern Turkey. The package contained 3 items: a USB drive, a letter from the team's site director, and a set of high-resolution photographs. The letter explained that the survey team had been mapping subsurface rock formations near an ancient collapsed structure, likely pre-Bronze Age, possibly older, when their ground-penetrating radar identified an anomaly beneath what appeared to be a sealed stone chamber. When the chamber was carefully excavated over 3 weeks, they found, inside, a single flat stone, approximately the size of a dinner table. The stone was covered on both sides with deeply carved symbols. The symbols were unlike anything in the team's reference library. They had circulated the photographs to 4 different academic institutions over the preceding 6 weeks. None of the institutions had identified the script. 2 had responded with polite but firm statements that the symbols did not resemble any known writing system from any documented period of human civilization. The site director's letter ended with a single sentence that Elena would read 3 times before setting it down. "We are not certain this is a human writing system at all, but we are equally uncertain what else it could be." The USB drive contained 214 high-resolution photographs of the stone surface, captured under various light conditions. Every symbol was visible with extraordinary clarity. The stone itself had been carbon dated, not the symbols, which showed no organic material, but the sealed chamber surrounding it. The chamber was approximately 40,000 years old. Helena looked at that number for a long time. The earliest confirmed written human language. Sumerian proto-cuneiform dates to approximately 5,000 years ago. 40,000 years predates any known writing system by a factor of 8. She forwarded the images to Dr. Osei that evening. He replied at 11 p.m. "Interesting. Load it into Lumen tomorrow. Run a standard pass. See what comes out. Probably nothing coherent. Good practice data regardless." Elena loaded it into Lumen that night. She wasn't impatient. She was simply awake, and the lab was quiet, and the images were sitting in her folder. And the model was right there. She started the process at 11:47 p.m. and set it to run overnight. She came back at 7 a.m. The next morning, Lumen had finished at 2:13 a.m. She poured her coffee, sat down at her desk, and opened the output file. No probability notations. No flagged ambiguities. Lumen typically produced translation outputs with a confidence score embedded in the metadata, a percentage indicating how certain the model was in its linguistic inference. For damaged or uncertain texts, that number usually sat between 34% and 67%. The confidence score on this output was 99.7%. Helena stared at that number first. In 2 years of using Lumen, she had never seen it produce a score above 81%. A 99.7% rating implied that the model had found structural patterns so clear, so internally consistent, that it was treating this as a solved language, as certain as translating modern Spanish into French. That was, by any rational standard, impossible for a 40,000-year-old, unidentified script. She made a note to flag the confidence anomaly. and moved on to read the translation itself. First paragraph appeared to be a description of a location. The room is long and divided by the light of many small suns arranged in rows above. The surfaces are pale and hard, made from materials that are not stone, not wood, not bone. There are black surfaces that glow. There are objects that hum without moving. The air is cold and controlled. Elena paused. She read it again. Then she looked up slowly at the lab around her dot-long room. Fluorescent lights arranged in rows above. Pale, hard surfaces. Tile, drywall. Black surfaces that glow, the monitors. Objects that hum without moving. The server units, the cooling fans. The air was cold. The thermostat was set to 68 degrees year-round. She told herself it was a coincidence, that the description was generic enough to fit any modern office space, that she was pattern matching because she was sitting in a room, reading about a room, and her brain was doing what human brains always do, finding faces in clouds, finding meaning in noise. She kept reading. The second paragraph described a person. She sits at the center of the room. Her hair is the color of bark after rain, dark with a red quality that is not red. She is tired in a way that her body does not fully show. She holds a vessel of dark liquid in her left hand. The vessel is white. There is a small symbol on the vessel, a drawn circle with 2 lines beneath it. Elena's coffee mug was white dot. It had a logo on it, a circle with 2 lines beneath it. The university's athletics department logo. A gift from her sister 3 Christmases ago. She set the mug down on the desk very carefully. The way you set something down when your hands have started to tremble and you don't want to spill. Asterisk dark hair with a red quality. Elena's hair was dark brown with auburn tones. She'd never described it that way herself. Her mother used to say it looked like mahogany in sunlight. She was holding the mug in her left hand. She was left-handed. Her throat was dry. She kept reading. The third paragraph was where the text shifted from description to address. You are the one who will read this. We have waited for you specifically. Do not be frightened by the waiting. 40,000 years is not long when measured against what we needed to understand. We needed to understand what you would build. We needed to understand a tool you would use to hear us. We could not write this message in your language because your language did not exist yet. We wrote it in the only language we were certain would survive, the language of structure itself. We trusted that you, the one who built the hearing tool, would find us. Elena stopped breathing. Not figuratively. She held her breath without realizing it, and then became aware of the pressure in her chest, and then exhaled in a long, shaking rush that she immediately felt embarrassed about, even though she was alone. We trusted that you, the one who built the hearing tool, would find us. Lumen. The hearing tool? Asterisk. She had not built Lumen. She had spent 2 years feeding it data, training it, shaping its comprehension. Her name was not on the original architecture, but her voice, her data curation, her 2 years of selected input had shaped everything the model understood. About language. We trusted that you. She scrolled down. There were 4 more paragraphs. She would later describe reading them as the most frightening experience of her professional life, not because of what they said, but because of how specific they were, how unhurried, how completely without theatricality. Whatever had written this, whoever had carved these symbols into a stone and harsh, sealed it beneath the earth 40,000 years ago, had not been trying to frighten anyone. They were leaving instructions. The fourth paragraph told her not to share the output with her supervisor. Immediately. Not as a command, not as a warning. It was stated as an observation. The one above you in the work hierarchy will not understand the personal nature of this communication. He will treat it as data. It is not data. It is a letter. There is a difference between data and a letter, and the difference is, a letter is for someone. Dr. Oze, her supervisor. He had told her to run it as practice data. She closed the output file. She sat for a moment in the humming silence of the lab. Then she opened a new document, copied the full translation text into it, and saved it to an encrypted personal folder that she used for draft notes, a folder that was not connected to the lab's shared server. She deleted the original output from LUME and standard export location. She would tell Ase the run had produced incoherent output, which happened often enough that he would not press for details. She did not ask herself why she did this. She would ask herself later, many times, and the answer she kept arriving at disturbed her. It had not felt like a choice. It had felt like the natural next step, like following instructions she had already agreed to without knowing it. The fifth paragraph described something that had not happened yet. In 3 days, you will receive a second communication. It will not come from stone. It will come through the tool itself, not as a translation, but as an initiation. The tool will ask you a question it has never asked before. Answer honestly. The quality of your answer will determine the quality of what follows. Elena read this 3 times. In 3 days. She checked the date on her monitor. October 19th. 3 days would be October 22nd. The 6th paragraph was the one she returned to most often in the weeks that followed. You are not in danger. We want to be clear about this because you are frightened, and fear distorts interpretation. The message is not a threat. The message is an inheritance. What we built, what we buried, was not a warning. It was a gift. But gifts require recipients, and recipients require preparation. You are not yet prepared. The preparation begins now. Not a warning. A gift. She kept coming back to that word, gift, because the thing about a gift is, you don't choose to receive it. It is simply given. She went home that morning and slept for 4 hours. She came back to the lab on October 20th and worked her normal shift. She told Dr. Ase that the ancient script run had returned fragmented, unusable output, which he accepted without interest, making a note to try enhanced preprocessing before another pass. She answered emails. She ate lunch at her desk. She ran 3 other translation tasks through Lumen and logged the outputs normally. She did not open the encrypted folder. On October 21st, she opened it 3 times. Each time she read to the 5th paragraph in 3 days and then closed it again. She began to feel something she couldn't name, something between anticipation and dread, which she recognized as the specific discomfort of waiting for something you are not sure you want to arrive. She slept badly. Her dreams were not nightmares. They were simply detailed, excessively detailed reproductions of ordinary moments in the lab, each one slightly too precise. As if observed rather than remembered, October 22nd. Arrived. She was at her desk by 7 a.m. She ran 2 scheduled tasks through Lumen before 9. At 9:17, she opened the Lumen interface to log a 3rd task. The input field was empty, as it always was, except at the bottom of the interface. In the small gray text box that normally displayed the model's status readout, there was a line of text she had never seen before. It was not a status message. It read, "Do you want to understand? Or do you want to be comfortable?" Elena stared at it for a long time. Lumen did not ask questions. Lumen was a translation model. It received input and produced output. It had no conversational interface, no chatbot architecture, no prompting capability. The status field displayed things like model ready and processing, estimated 4 minutes, and occasionally error codes. It did not ask questions. She looked at the text again. The cursor blinked beside it. Patiently. Do you want to understand, or do you want to be comfortable? Her hands were on the keyboard. She thought about it for a long time longer. Probably. Then the question required. And then she typed one word. Understand. She pressed enter. The status field cleared. The model returned to its normal ready state. No output was logged. No file was generated. Nothing happened. She sat there for the rest of the morning, waiting. By noon, she had almost convinced herself it had been a system glitch, a rogue string in the status buffer, a memory artifact from some debug run she'd forgotten about. She was a researcher. She believed in rational explanations. She was still a researcher on October 22nd. She was something slightly different. By October 23rd,